They're not sending their best. They're sending people that have lots of problems. They're bringing drugs, they're bringing crime, they're rapists, and some, I assume, are good people.
Everyone, welcome to the show. So don't say I never gave you anything for Christmas, because this is a really epic gift. This is going to be a long one. That's what she said. Probably not to Matt Gaetz, though. So here's the deal. So the Matt Gaetz ethics report just dropped. After reading all 42 pages, here are the biggest two takeaways, in my opinion. Number one, former Congressman Matt Gaetz is a sociopath. And two, the Department of Justice is clearly covering for him. I mean, it is blatantly obvious. So before I dive into the details, I wanted to share, though, Gaetz tried to sue the committee this morning. He was trying to prevent this report from coming out. So in his filing, he asked the court to issue a temporary restraining order because he's now a private citizen, and he said the report contains, quote, potentially defamatory allegations that would cause, quote, damage to his reputation and professional standing. As if he has those anymore. So here's what the report says. So among other things, these are the key points that they lay out. The committee says they found, quote, substantial evidence of the following. From at least 2017 to 2020, Representative Gaetz regularly paid women for engaging in sexual activity with him. In 2017, Representative Gaetz engaged in sexual activity with a 17-year-old girl. During the period 2017 to 2019, Representative Gaetz used or possessed illegal drugs, including cocaine and ecstasy, on multiple occasions. Representative Gaetz accepted gifts, including transportation and lodging, in connection with a 2018 trip to the Bahamas, in excess of permissible amounts. In 2018, Representative Gaetz arranged for his chief of staff to assist a woman with whom he engaged in sexual activity in obtaining a passport, falsely indicating to the U.S. Department of State that she was a constituent. Representative Gaetz knowingly and willfully sought to impede and obstruct the committee's investigation of his conduct. And, quote, based on the above, the committee concluded there was substantial evidence that Representative Gaetz violated House rules, state and federal laws, and other standards of conduct prohibiting prostitution, statutory rape, illicit drug use, acceptance of impermissible gifts, the provision of special favors and privileges, and obstruction of Congress. However, the report did not find evidence that Gaetz violated sex trafficking laws. They said that he did transport women across state lines for the purpose of, quote unquote, commercial sex, but none of those women were under 18, and they said there was no force or coercion involved, which, as you're going to hear, not necessarily 100% accurate. So the report goes on to say that Gaetz was extremely uncooperative. Gaetz apparently refused to sit for an interview. This was even after they issued a subpoena for him to do so. He repeatedly asked for extensions and delays, and in total, he turned over only 3 pages of information to the committee. And this part is really interesting. The committee says the Justice Department refused to provide witness statements that they received or they got during their federal investigation. They gave the committee a bunch of excuses, but it is all complete bullshit. The women involved should not have to sit for multiple interviews and have to relive their experiences in front of a bunch of different people from different arms of the government, right? They shouldn't have to be humiliated that way. Also, the committee said the DOJ refused to hand over an audio recording that they have where Gaetz was discussing the federal investigation with one of the women that he paid for sex. So they have that. They refused to turn it over. The committee pointed out This is not the way the DOJ typically handles these situations in these cases. They wrote that the DOJ's actions are, quote, inconsistent with DOJ's historical conduct with respect to the committee and its unique role in upholding the integrity of the House. And then further down in the report, they said, quote, to date, DOJ has provided no meaningful evidence or information to the committee or cited any lawful basis for its responses. So, like I've said so many times, Attorney General Merrick Garland was the first huge mistake that Joe Biden made when he took office. Garland claimed he was going to restore the Justice Department's reputation. He's going to uphold the law. That's not what this was. That does not accomplish that goal in any way, shape, or form. So, as for the allegations against Gaetz, here's some of the details that they provided. They determined that he, quote, made tens of thousands of dollars in payments to women that the committee determined were likely in connection with sexual activity and or drug use. They say he often paid these women, which we pretty much already knew, via PayPal, Venmo, and the Cash App accounts. Sometimes, though, he paid with cash or check. And then there were other occasions where they allege that he used other people's accounts, or I should say he used another person's PayPal account, and then he used an account that was connected to an email with a fake name. And here's a look at these alleged payments. So this is pretty shocking. For those on the podcast, what it shows is that Gaetz paid one woman alone, a total of almost $64,000 over the course of a 4-year period. So this was from 2017 to 2020. She received over $64,000 from Gaetz. Now, the report says that particular woman was in a long-term relationship with Gaetz, so some of that money may have been legit. Here's the thing, though. They do say further down, this was not an exclusive relationship. This was not his quote-unquote girlfriend, right? They were having sex with other people. They allegedly engaged in sex with some of these other women that Gaetz was paying altogether. And then they went on to say in this report that she, quote, asserted her Fifth Amendment right when asked whether the payments to her from Representative Gaetz were for sexual activity and or drugs, or for her to pass on to others for such purposes. Based on that assertion, combined with evidence received from other sources, the committee found substantial reason to believe that most of these payments were for such activity. And in total, they show that Gaetz paid 12 different women a combined $91,268.82. Over $91,000. He also gave his friend Joel Greenberg $3,950, presumably to give to these women. And these amounts don't even include money that was allegedly paid with cash or check, or money that was paid on behalf of Gaetz that was paid by other people. So it was even more than that. And the committee notes that they weren't able to interview all of the women with whom Gaetz allegedly paid for sex because some of them feared retribution. And so they just refused to voluntarily sit for an interview. And this was very telling. The committee obtained text messages between Gaetz and one of these women. And Gaetz, in these exchanges, he was complaining about having to send her money because she, quote unquote, ditched him. And he said that he said she used the excuse that she was tired. And Gaetz accused her of giving him only a, quote, drive-by. And the woman responded to him and said that he was treating her differently than the other women that he was paying for sex. And then they also obtained text messages sent by Gaetz supposedly to this long-term girlfriend, a quote unquote girlfriend. I use that term loosely. So she messaged some of the other women that Gaetz and Greenberg were supposedly paying for sex. And she said, quote, "The guys wanted me to share that they are a little limited in their cash flow this weekend. Matt was like, if it can be more of a customer appreciation week." So, yeah, I mean, why do you need to reach out to a quote unquote long-term girlfriend and say, "Hey, I'm a little short on cash. Do me a solid, give me a customer appreciation week"? I mean, that's him admitting he's a customer, not a boyfriend, right? So, I mean, that's her relaying this message. We'd have to see the message from him to prove this, but that's what they say. A few months after that, this same woman, the same quote unquote long-term girlfriend, she messaged these other women again and she wrote, quote, "By the way, Matt also mentioned he is going to be a bit generous because of the customer appreciation thing last time." Yeah. So the report goes on to detail Gaetz' alleged drug use, including cocaine and ecstasy, and how he would request that these women bring weed and other drugs to the parties. The committee also shared this text exchange between Gaetz' friend Joel Greenberg and a 20-year-old woman that he met through the sugar daddy website Seeking Arrangements, which is where all of these women came from. If this exchange is not a smoking gun, I don't know what is. If this is not smoking gun evidence, I seriously don't know what else you could provide to prove what was going down here. So for those on the podcast or those who can't make out the words, I'm going to read this for you. So it's basically, it's Greenberg starts off, quote, "If you have a friend that is down, perhaps all of us can meet up later. Do you party at all?" So the 20-year-old says, quote, "Oh, that's perfect. I have a friend who introduced me to the website that I could bring. She is very pretty, great personality. I usually do $400 per meet. Does your friend use the website as well?" Greenberg, quote, "Yes, he understands the deal." And quote, "400 is not a problem. Are you both old enough to drink?" So the text picks up later with Greenberg saying, quote, "my friend," and he sends a picture of Matt Gaetz to her. And then Greenberg texted, quote, "Well, he's down here only for the day. We work hard and play hard. Have you ever tried Molly?" Which, for those who don't know, that is a drug. The actual name is MDMA. So interesting, isn't it, that Greenberg used the same work hard, play hard phrase that Gaetz just used in a tweet when he was trying to minimize his actions? Wonder if that's something they used to say to each other all the time. So anyway, Gaetz, I'm sure, I think he's even done this already, but he can try to say, "Oh, well, Greenberg was acting without my knowledge. I didn't know he was negotiating these things with these women." But according to the committee, they have actual evidence showing that Gaetz did meet with this 20-year-old on several occasions. The one who Greenberg was communicating with, Gaetz actually met up with her himself. He started following her accounts on social media, and he paid her over $2,000 since late in 2018. So, yeah, kind of refutes any argument he might have there. The report also mentions an incident that sounds an awful like coercion. So this is why I said not necessarily accurate to say there was no coercion, because there was a 21-year-old who Gaetz had previously paid for sex. She reaches out to Gaetz and she says to him, "I need help with my college tuition." So Gaetz says, "Okay, I can help you out with that. I'm at this hotel. Why don't you meet me over there? And I'm going to give you a check." So she thought that was kind of odd because apparently he usually paid her on Venmo. Well, she arrives at the hotel and Gaetz is not alone. He was there with Greenberg and he was with the 20-year-old that I previously mentioned. So the 21-year-old told the committee that there was a, quote, expectation of a sexual encounter. And then she said, quote, that she really needed the money. So she didn't realize that when she requested that he help her with her tuition, and he said, yeah, let's meet at the hotel, she had no idea that there were going to be other people there. She conceded, though, that yes, the four of them ended up having sex, and then Gaetz gave her a check for $750. And the committee secured evidence showing that, yes, Gaetz actually was at this hotel on that day, and then they also have a copy of the check. And this next story shows just how much Gaetz and his representatives lie. So the committee has messages showing Gaetz invited a woman to travel with him out of state, him and Greenberg. One of Gaetz's messages to her said, quote, 2 guys, 4 girls, a very high quality adventurous group. They also have a photo of Gaetz with his arm around this woman in a bar. And then they have another photo of this woman standing in front of a helicopter with 3 other women who we know now to be associated with Gaetz. So after news of these photos leaked to the press, Gaetz's spokesperson issued a statement and it said, quote, Rep. Gaetz does not know anything about the woman you are referencing, though he takes thousands of selfies each year. Okay, not only do the text messages prove that this statement is false, the committee also has records showing that Gaetz paid this woman, the one in the photo, $600 the same day that that photo was taken. And then another section of the report shows how Gaetz lies to his supporters and tricks them into believing that he's cooperating. And so, of course, he couldn't have possibly done anything wrong. He has nothing to hide. So the committee detailed their exhaustive effort to try to obtain documents, to obtain evidence from Gaetz. They were like, hey, if you have exculpatory evidence, we want to see it, right? Give us everything that you handed over to the Justice Department. So they explain how he repeatedly stonewalled, he fought them, he sent them angry letters, he told them, that they were asking for too much, it's, thousands of pages, and I don't have time for this. Yet, they wrote, quote, Representative Gaetz also falsely stated in a letter to the committee, which he shared in a public social media post, that he had voluntarily, this is a quote from him, voluntarily produced tens of thousands of records. To the contrary, Representative Gaetz provided only a couple hundred records, more than 90% of which was either irrelevant or publicly available. Despite multiple extensions from the committee to review and produce responsive records from the 10,000 he claimed he would review, Representative Gaetz ultimately declared he would no longer cooperate with the committee. So, of course, his followers aren't going to bother to go do their due diligence. They're not going to bother to research this and know that he completely stonewalled, that he didn't hand over hardly anything and nothing of substance, right? So as for these women and how they're feeling now, some of them are still, kind of covering for Gaetz, but one of them said that the use of drugs may have, quote, impaired their ability to really know what was going on or fully consent. In fact, the report says that almost every single one of the women that they spoke with had trouble remembering certain details of events that they attended with Gaetz because of the drugs and alcohol that they consumed. And some of these women said that they felt pressured to have sex with Gaetz and Greenberg. One woman said, quote, he would make me feel bad about not having sex with him or Joel Greenberg. Another said her relationship with Gaetz was a, quote, loving friendship, but that over the course of time, it came to feel like a, quote unquote, task. And then a third woman told the committee, quote, when I look back on certain moments, I feel violated. I think about it all the time. I still see him when I turn on the TV, and there's nothing anyone can do. It's frustrating to know I lived a reality that he denies. And in their summation of their findings, the committee wrote, quote, Representative Gaetz took advantage of the economic vulnerability of young women to lure them into sexual activity for which they received an average of a few $100s after each encounter. Such behavior is not generosity to ex-girlfriends, and it does not reflect credibly upon the House. So the committee also detailed the allegations of Gaetz having sex with the then 17-year-old girl. They referred to her as Victim A. Victim A had just finished her junior year in high school when these crimes allegedly occurred. And although they state that there's no evidence showing that Gaetz was aware of her age at the time, the committee claims that Gaetz had sex with her twice, 2 times in the same night, in fact. And he bragged to Greenberg the next day that he, quote, had sex with 6 girls in one day and named all of them. All I'm going to say is I really hope his wife had him tested. So anyway, the report concluded with, quote, based on the above, the committee determined that there is substantial evidence that Representative Gaetz violated House rules and other standards of conduct prohibiting prostitution, statutory rape, illicit drug use, impermissible gifts, special favors or privileges, and obstruction of Congress. So I really hope his allies follow through in Congress. I hope that their threat to release evidence regarding hush money payments from other members of Congress actually comes to pass. Do it. I want to see it. I don't care who it is. I don't care if they're a Democrat or a Republican. We have a right to know. We are their bosses, right? We pay their salaries. So the members of Congress, by the way, who voted against releasing this report, they did so because he is no longer in Congress and they felt that it violated their, typical practice. No, sorry, this guy is still angling for a position in government. This guy was just reelected in his area, in his district. So, a major news network is talking about putting him on, I shouldn't say major news network. I think it's OAN, One American News Network. They're now going to give him his own show. And all these people up in arms, oh, Hunter Biden and, oh, all the sex tapes and blah, 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 blah. He's not in Congress. He's not working in government. He is a private citizen, yet these people on the right, members of Congress, felt that they had the right to show his dick pics and to talk about everything that they found on his laptop. Guy doesn't work in Congress. He does not work. I'm no fan, as people know, I'm no fan of Hunter Biden, but he was not working in government. And yet MAGA Republicans felt that it was completely legitimate to expose his sex life. But then they're going to stand against releasing this report? Seriously? For a member of Congress, someone who has been in Congress for years, who is still looking to be involved in government. Yeah, double standards much? Hypocrisy much? I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear another word about Hunter Biden. It's ridiculous. Private citizen. not doing this on taxpayer dime, as Matt Gaetz allegedly was. So anyway, there you go, guys. Finally, the report we've been waiting for. Not much that we didn't already know, but there were a few details in there that are just like stomach churning. And to know that some of these women felt like they were pressured. I mean, pressuring a woman to have sex, I kind of could be considered rape, right? I mean, I don't know. I would think that some of these women maybe would have a case against him if they tried to take it to court. I don't know, but given that they were on this website, but then again, the website doesn't say that it's about prostitution. It says that it's, they're there to be arm candy and go on dates. And again, I'm going to say for all the MAGA people who are still out there, oh, he's innocent, there were no charges pressed. Really? Why hasn't Matt Gaetz sued any of these people? Why has he not brought charges or filed a defamation lawsuit against any of these women, against anyone who has made these allegations against him? That's called a clue. Get one. Seriously. You know who this guy is. You know how litigious he is. You know what a loudmouth he is, how arrogant. You think for a minute that Matt Gaetz would not sue these women but for the fact that he would have to go to court and testify, and everything would come out, and he couldn't play these games like he did with the committee of not turning over evidence. He would have to turn over everything. So wake up. Wake the fuck up, MAGA. All right, I will let you all know if I hear any more, but this should do it. That's a wrap. All right. Thank you all so much for watching and listening. Please like, please share, and subscribe. Please donate if you possibly can. Love you all. Take care. Talk with you soon.